Welcome to your deep dive. Ever feel like tech wants you to be some kind of robot?
It's kind of funny, right?
Totally. But we're diving into this article, and it says, hold up, your human side, like all those emotions, empathy, that's not just, a nice thing to have. It could be like your secret weapon as a coder.
It's about time we're realizing soft skills are career fuel, especially for us programmers. This article, it's saying emotional intelligence, EI for short, can make or break you in tech.
Okay, gotta unpack that. I mean, coding, it's all logic, right? So, what does emotional intelligence even look like when you're swimming in algorithms all day?
Here's the thing. Code doesn't have feelings, but the people writing it, debugging it, using it, they definitely do. And this article is all about how understanding and actually managing those emotions, both your own and your teammates,
Yeah.
that's what makes you a better coder.
So it's not just being emotional, it's about being smart about emotions.
You got it. And the best part is, it's not some mystical art. Daniel Goleman, the article mentions him. He's got this framework, breaks EI down into 5 pieces: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and then social skills.
Let's break them down a bit. Self-awareness, that seems pretty simple, right? Knowing your own emotions.
Yeah, but think about it like this. How do you react when you're stuck on a bug for 3 hours straight? Or a project just goes totally sideways? That self-awareness, that's crucial for a coder.
Oof. Yeah, I can feel that. Easy to spiral into frustration town. So is self-regulation basically like not throwing your laptop out the window when that happens?
Very much. It's about being in control of those intense feelings. Can you take a breath, step back, and then tackle the problem calmly? That, my friend, is a superpower in our world.
Especially with these crazy deadlines and tech that changes like every 5 minutes. Which, speaking of, where does motivation fit into this whole thing? Is it just that, passion for coding?
Passion's important, for sure. But this article, it talks about a deeper level, that intrinsic drive to learn, grow, keep going, even when you hit a wall. That's resilience, and it's key in this field.
Makes sense. Tech changes so fast, you got to have that internal push to adapt and constantly be learning new things.
And that adaptability, the article makes this point, it's a direct result of having strong EI. It's not just about surviving the changes, it's about using your emotional intelligence to thrive in all the chaos.
Okay, starting to connect the dots here, but empathy, social skill, isn't there like this whole stereotype about programmers being lone wolves?
Oh man, that stereotype is so outdated. The truth is, coding is crazy collaborative. You're working with designers, project managers, other devs, even clients who don't speak tech.
Right, and being able to explain these complex ideas so they actually get it, that takes serious communication skills. That's where empathy comes in, yeah.
100%. The article digs into how emotional intelligence helps you bridge that communication gap, build those relationships, and ultimately get everyone on the same page.
This is already making me rethink how I approach my projects. But the article doesn't just tell you what EI is, it gets into why it matters so much for us coders. And it boils down to 5 key benefits. The first one being, you guessed it, better collaboration.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it. The more you're in tune with your own emotions and those of your teammates, the better you'll be at navigating those group dynamics, handling disagreements productively and just contributing to a more positive environment.
So you're saying a happier, more productive team, that's a big deal. What other benefits does the article talk about?
Well, we already touched on it a bit, but the second benefit is better communication. And it's not just about explaining your ideas clearly. It's also about really listening, understanding where the other person's coming from, even if it's totally different from your view.
Makes me think about those times when you got to explain some tech issue to like a client who's not technical at all. You got to meet them where they are.
Right. Absolutely. It's like, how do you take all that jargon, all that tech speak, and make it something they can relate to, something they can grasp? Empathy is key there, and really being aware of who you're talking to.
It's almost like you're speaking 2 languages at once, code and like the language of emotions.
Nailed it. And speaking of challenges, this next benefit from the article really hit home for me: better problem solving. We all hit those walls in coding, but get this. The article says EI can actually make you a better problem solver.
Really? How so? You'd think a logical mindset would be more helpful when you're, say, trying to untangle some crazy code.
Logic is key, no doubt. But remember those intense emotions we talked about? That frustration, the stress, even just feeling overwhelmed. That can cloud your judgment and make it way harder to spot solutions.
Hold on, are you saying that being aware of those emotions and like keeping them in check, that actually helps you think more clearly and have those aha moments faster?
Bingo. When you're not fighting your own brain, you can approach the problem with a calmer, more focused mind. And that's usually when those creative solutions pop up.
Makes sense when you put it like that. And it seems like those problem-solving skills would be even more valuable as you climb the career ladder, which, hey, that's the fourth benefit, career advancement.
Right on. The article makes a strong case for how EI becomes even more crucial as you move into leadership. It's not just about the code anymore, it's about managing people. And that takes a whole other level of emotional intelligence.
It's a whole different ballgame. You're not just responsible for your own code anymore. You're responsible for the well-being and output of this whole team.
Exactly. And the article emphasizes that those leadership skills, things like inspiring your team, motivating them, handling conflicts, even just building a culture where everyone can do their best work, that's all rooted in emotional intelligence.
Totally. And last but not least, we have that fifth benefit, which goes back to what we were saying before, being able to adapt to change.
Yep, that ever-shifting tech landscape. How does EI help us ride those waves?
Okay, so picture this. You're hit with some brand new tech you've never seen before, or there's a sudden project change up, or even just a really difficult client request. Your first reaction, it's going to be emotional, right?
For sure. It might be excitement, a bit of apprehension, maybe even a touch of fear of the unknown. Human stuff.
Definitely. It's how you deal with those emotions that matters. Can you take that initial reaction and channel it into something useful? Can you see those challenges not as roadblocks, but as, like, detours on this exciting journey of being a programmer?
Love that. And that's what Strong EI lets you do. It's about resilience, flexibility, and that willingness to embrace the unknown.
I'm digging that analogy. Okay, so we've covered why emotional intelligence is so crucial, but the big question is, how do we actually get better at this stuff? Thankfully, the article has some practical tips.
It does. And it starts with good old self-reflection.
You mean taking a step back, looking at how we react emotionally to the whole coding process?
Exactly. The article even suggests specific questions to ask yourself, like, how did I feel when I hit that frustrating bug? Did I handle it well, or did I totally lose it?
Those are good questions. It's like holding up a mirror to your whole coding experience, not just the tech stuff, but the emotional side too.
And since we're on the topic of reflecting on your process, the article then talks about pair programming.
Which, just to clarify for our listeners, is where two programmers team up on the same code, often working right next to each other.
Right. And while pair programming is already pretty common, the article wants us to see it as a training ground for emotional intelligence.
Interesting. It's easy to get so laser focused on the code itself that you forget, like, there's another human being right there.
Exactly. So instead of just the technical stuff, pay attention to how you're communicating with your partner, how you're handling disagreements, how you're giving and receiving feedback.
So it's like pair programming becomes this mini version of real-world team dynamics where you can practice those essential EI skills in a safe, supportive space.
You got it. And get this, the article takes this idea even further and applies it to code reviews.
Yeah, code reviews, every programmer's favorite, right? I've definitely had some that felt a little emotionally intense, let's say.
You're telling me. Code reviews can be tricky. But this article, it's encouraging us to go into them with that same empathy, that focus on giving feedback that's actually constructive, like we've been talking about.
So not just like, you messed this up, but trying to understand why they wrote it that way and giving feedback that helps them, respectfully.
Exactly. It's about helping each other become better programmers, not tearing each other down.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means taking a moment for yourself, like managing your own emotional response before you say anything.
Yeah, it's so easy to just fire off a quick critical comment when you're looking at a screen full of code, but just pausing, taking a breath, letting that initial reaction settle, that's where the emotional intelligence really comes in handy.
Totally agree. And this kind of leads into the next tip the article talks about bringing mindfulness practices into, like your regular programmer routine.
Mindfulness, you mean like meditation, deep breathing, all that?
Yep, exactly that. Now, I know that might sound kind of out there for some people, but there's more and more evidence that these practices can actually make a huge difference in your work, especially in a field as demanding as ours.
So we're talking better focus, less stress, maybe even a little extra patience for those really tough debugging sessions.
All of that. And remember, we talked about self-awareness. Well, mindfulness helps you tap into that. You start to notice your own emotional state and how it might be affecting your work.
It's like having this, I don't know, a secret weapon to fight burnout. And in tech, anything that keeps you grounded and focused is a win in my book.
No argument there. And lastly, for anyone who really wants to level up their EI, the article suggests workshops or even online courses that are made specifically for tech people.
So a more structured way to build those skills. I bet that looks good to employers too. Shows you're serious about self-improvement.
Definitely can't hurt. We've been talking a lot about the theory of emotional intelligence, how to practice it. But the article, it gets real and shares some pretty awesome case studies of programmers who actually used EI to change their careers.
Oh, I love a good case study. It's one thing to talk about this stuff in the abstract, but seeing it in action, that's what really makes it sink in.
Right. So, for example, there's this story about Sarah, a crazy good programmer. Everyone knew she had the skills, but teamwork, not her strong suit. She came across as kind of harsh, dismissive in meetings. It was holding her back.
Oh, I know the type. Super talented, but not the easiest person to collaborate with.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. Sarah realized this about herself and decided, I'm going to work on my EI. She started really paying attention to how she talked to her team, making a conscious effort to listen more, criticize less.
So she took a step back, looked at how she was acting, and actually chose to change. That's huge. What happened?
It made a world of difference. Her coworkers, they noticed the change right away. Suddenly, Sarah wasn't just that tech whiz, she was a valuable team player.
That's amazing. It proves that emotional intelligence isn't like set in stone when you're born. You can learn it, get better at it over time.
Absolutely. And it can seriously impact your career. For Sarah, because her EI improved, she ended up getting offered a leadership role she never would have gotten before.
Wow, that's what I'm talking about. What about the other stories?
Okay, so there's Mike, a senior dev who moved into project management. Always been a strong coder, but managing a whole team. Totally different beast.
Night and day. Suddenly, it's not just your code. You're responsible for these other people, their well-being, making sure the whole team is productive.
You get it. And Mike realized that being good at tech would only take him so far in this new role. To really nail it, he needed to up his emotional intelligence game.
So what'd he do?
He started with empathy, really tried to get to know his team, his people. What are they good at? What are they not so good at? How does each person like to work? And he asked for feedback all the time, made sure people felt safe being honest with him.
He went from just giving orders to actually connecting with his team, human to human.
Exactly. And, no surprise, his team became one of the best in the company. Productive, everyone was engaged, people wanted to work for him because they felt seen, heard, valued.
See, that's the power of EI right there. It's not just about being nice, it's about making a space where everyone can actually do their best work.
For sure. Okay, last one, Alex. A junior dev, crazy talented but struggled with self-doubt, the pressure of working on these complex projects.
Oof, I feel that. I think every programmer has had a taste of imposter syndrome at some point.
It's real. And for Alex, it was showing up as anxiety, trouble focusing. He was so scared of messing up that it was messing with his work.
So how did he get past that?
He started working on his self-awareness, paid attention to what he was telling himself, all those negative thoughts, and then he challenged them. Plus, he started those mindfulness practices we talked about, helped him manage stress, stay grounded.
Like retraining his brain to focus on the good stuff, build up that resilience.
Exactly. And guess what? It worked. As Alex got better at self-awareness and managing his emotions, his confidence went up, and he could tackle those hard projects with a clear head.
Those are some seriously inspiring stories. But, gotta ask, the article mentions that figuring out the impact of emotional intelligence, it's not always clear-cut. It's not like there's an app that measures your EI score or something.
That's right. It's not as easy to measure as, say, lines of code or bugs you've squashed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't see its effects.
So how do you measure something that's kind of, well, invisible?
The article suggests looking at a bunch of things together, like how's your team working together? Are your projects successful? What kind of feedback are you getting? Even just how's your career going?
So less about hard data, more about whether things are actually working.
Exactly. Are your teams more collaborative, more productive? Is your code cleaner, easier to understand? Are people saying good things about your work? Are you moving up in your career? Those are all signs that your emotional intelligence is doing its thing.
That's a really helpful way to look at it. It drives home the point that emotional intelligence isn't just about being nice. It's a skill set, just like knowing a programming language. And it can really affect your career, your success as a programmer, the whole package.
I couldn't have said it better myself. In a field that's all about logic, about code, it's that human element, that emotional intelligence that really makes you stand out.
So there you have it. Our deep dive into why emotional intelligence is a total game changer for programmers. It's about bringing your whole self to work, emotions and all, and using them to fuel your creativity, how well you work with others, and ultimately building a more fulfilling, successful career in tech. What really hit home for you today? How can you start using these EI practices in your own coding journey? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those emotions even sharper.